you shocked by what happened yesterday, Kelvin?
No, I thought it was appalling. I thought it was quite wrong. And, right, so obviously I'm on the right.
You're not. You have hid that. Hold on a second. You have hid that so well. I thought you was here to cheer on the Labour Party. We've got our bookings crossed. Sorry, go on. You're on the right.
They had to build a brick wall to stop me going further right. No, so I was amazed about it. It made me wonder, being a natural conspiracy theorist, about what is it he knows that is coming down the pike that we don't know. It made me feel very uneasy about the running of the country. It was a poor speech. It was a poor speech that had been put together. You would have thought that among the many things that they plotted about was what does the weather look like, right? Why don't you try and make yourself look as grand as you possibly can? All right, it'll all disappear in the 6 weeks. There was a series of things that I thought were massively, massively wrong. And he may think he's clever by being able to keep this a secret, because they caught everybody out, you know, cabinet members as well as parliamentary, as well as anybody in the media, right? I think he's a fool, an absolute fool. And were it not for the fact that I am massively disappointed on the Farage issue, I would be seriously worried about where I was going to put my cross come July the 4th.
That is interesting stuff, and you do seem quite angry about it.
I'm furious about it, and it really made me wonder about what the state of this country is, where a Prime Minister keeps it so secret and in an odd way seems to enjoy it. And then clearly, that was a dreadful speech. After all, Starmer, who normally, you know, your blood pressure is the biggest thing that happens in his day, right? Even he managed to put together a better speech at no notice. And you've got to believe that Sunak at least had 2-3 days a week, or even 10 days, when he knew he was going to do it. No, this was a shocker from Sunak, honestly.
Blimey, so Kelvin's not happy. What about you, Ceri?
Well, I think election couldn't come soon enough, only because I think the Conservatives need a good kicking. And so, as far as I'm concerned, you know, he wasn't elected as Prime Minister, and so I'm glad it happened. I have to say that I felt sorry for him. Yes, it's the first time I've ever felt sorry for him. Stood there in the pouring rain. I mean, it was pathetic. And unbelievable that nobody could just hand him an umbrella. What is this? But again, this is Sunak and his party treating people with contempt. He was treating his own members with contempt by not discussing it with them. But at least there's an election, and I will use my protest vote or rip up my ballot paper.
But I just want to, like, when you say, oh, he wasn't elected and all the rest of it, that is the system in this country. Whether you like that or not, people will be shouting at their screen, will saying, well, what about Brown? He got into a position in the same way. That is just the system. So it's not his fault that he wasn't the one on the ballot paper. And then when you say as well about this rain, because lots of people that are not sympathetic to the Tories, I've been hearing them say today as well, oh, yeah, I felt a bit sorry for him. And then you remember that millions of pounds were spent on a so-called media room during the pandemic, which is, of course, indoors. Then you think to yourself, there you go. Look, if you've not seen him wet through, I don't know where you've been, quite frankly, but there he is. For me, it's the moment when he turns around and you see his back. His back is absolutely dripping wet. But I heard him this morning, and he was asked about this, and he was asked about, you know, your brolly or whatever. And he was saying, you know, I made the decision to go out there knowing it was raining, because that is Britain. It rains, and we're stoic, and we get on with it, and I'm not a fair weather Prime Minister.
Yeah, well, it's just sound bites, turning everything into, you know, I'm so tough. I just think, insofar as he's tough, he's authoritarian, because he's contemptuous of most working class people. And in terms of doing anything, he's hopeless.
Well, look, on the question of the rain, honestly, if you get given the choice in our country between shall I deliver this in the rain or shall I deliver it in the dry, surely anybody with brains will say, I'll tell you what, do it in the dry, because that's what normal people would do, right? I agree with the Wally with the brolly problem for him. That's why he didn't have a brolly. It just indicated to me that the whole thing, something as important as the general election was being done on the hoof, and that's what I really objected to.
But do you think it wasn't on the hoof, though? Because many people will say this was planned, and we'll come on to Nigel Farage in a minute. Don't worry, hold your horses, everyone, because I know that, honestly, my inbox, it's like, it's ching, ching, ching. It's just absolutely full of people wanting to talk about Nigel Farage. Don't you worry, I shall come on to that young man in a few minutes. But do you honestly think this was just, on the hoof, no planning, no thought process?
No, I don't think that. I don't think that. But I'm talking about how it played out. How it played out. Now, when you say how quickly, they obviously were waiting to look at numbers. They were waiting for the inflation numbers, and they were hoping that there was some other good news. Why are we doing this in July? That would be my question, right? If Sunak were here, I said, I want a detailed explanation of why you are doing it now, rather than the opportunity, for instance, the reduction of interest rates, which will help millions of people with their mortgages and potentially the knock-on effect of rents and that kind of stuff. Why have you chosen it now? Explain to me the real detail of this. And the answer to that may well be there are a series of things that are going to happen which will make life uncomfortable. And one of the ones that nobody has talked about is the fact that there is now no spare money. Because interest rates have stayed high, the money we have to pay back to our bankers, because of the 400 billion we borrowed during COVID, means that we have no money, not only not to reduce NI, can't reduce taxes, and that may be the reason. But if that is the reason, then he should tell us. It strikes me as though there is a form of secrecy within secrecy, and it upsets me.
I think that's very conspiratorial, though, Callum. I mean, you might be right, but all that you're saying really is he's jumped ship.
Yes, I am.
He's jumped ship.
I am.
And that may be true, but I don't know that it's because there's, crystal ball gazing. He knows there's some other horror around the corner.
Well, there's a lot of people, I've seen you all writing in, saying, Michelle, I think he's got a job in California or something, and you reckon that he's all ready to go over there. He would obviously argue, Rishi Sunak has been doing the rounds today, he would obviously argue that he's got this plan in place. He'll talk about things like inflation, but actually inflation yesterday, it wasn't as low as predicted, actually. So it might seem like a kind of good news story, but it was certainly expected and wanted to be slightly lower than that. And of course, many people, they haven't actually felt that trickle through yet to our pockets. Of course, you're going to find a situation, and we'll come on to immigration as well, where when it comes to the boat crossings, you're going to have the situation, hopefully the sun is going to start shining. These crossings, 10,000 or thereabouts already this year, that number is going to start increasing. And then you're going to be faced with this situation, which is the Labour Party, they're going to rip up that Rwanda plan. He will be able to stand on that podium and say, look at these crossings, my party is the only one that's going to be able to put a stop to it.